is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my two great co-hosts, Ralph Hannah Maria Britos. And guys, here we are. We're back. It's been a while since we've been able to have a show, but a lot has been mentioned over the last few days. Obviously, talking about what's been going on in the Paraguayan League, our Paraguayan teams in the Copa Libertadores and in the Sudamericana. We'll talk about what's been going on there. The league has also been a bit more tightened up. We've seen one team kind of separate itself from the pack. Who is it? And can indeed any team beat them? And looking at what's been going on in England, as one player that we've always been talking about over there has been making the rounds and has kind of stolen the show over there in England as well. And we're going to speak about who it is. So let me get my co-host in here. Let me go to Ralph, because I think certainly for you, you're feeling a bit more nervous. You know, maybe not for the Miami Heat, obviously, but definitely your Arsenal as they head off into that big game next week.
Yeah, tell me about it. It's been a big week of sports with the Heat last night doing the business, but Arsenal have really been struggling. So I've got that to stress myself out with tomorrow. But at least we'll talk about Cerro, who weren't as stressful as it could have been yesterday, which is nice. And yeah, it's a shame Fede's not here. He's doing, I think he's doing third division, Primera B today. And those leagues are in full flow. And it's really interesting because there's actually a lot of players that have joined from Africa, which is kind of rare to see in the Paraguayan League. Paraguay is famous for having, of course, Jeremy, who played for Cerro before he went off to Turkey and then ended up in Chelsea, Real Madrid, won a Champions League, all that kind of stuff. But more recently, we haven't seen so many. So there's actually 3 Nigerian players down one's in Atura in the second division, and 2 guys are in Tembetaru in the third division. And they've all come from Argentina, where they were trying out with like Banfield, Racing, these kind of big clubs in Argentina. Didn't make it, and they're trying their luck in Paraguay. And then at Cerro, there's these 2 kids from Mali who have represented the under-20s recently, the national team, the Malian under-20s. They didn't really win the reserves. Cerro won the reserves last year under Diego Gavilan, who we've had on the show before, of course. And I've heard some rumors that at least one of them, who's called Adama Traore, not to be confused with the Adama Traore in Europe, he's been scoring goals. And so one of these guys we might see get a run in Primera, because of course Cerro are playing these 2 competitions with Libertadores and the Apertura. So that was just something I've been keeping an eye on down in Paraguay, which is quite exciting.
It's definitely been exciting to see those kind of things. And what's really been exciting here, and I'll start our conversation with kind of the player at the moment, but let's go to Maria first, because certainly we haven't had her in quite some time. Certainly what we've been seeing as Paraguayans, we're seeing one name in Julio Enciso, really starting to get the attention now. And I think for us, we've been so used to seeing Almiron there and doing his stuff over the last few months. Now we get another one that is starting to finally get his attention and to obviously demonstrate his talent over there in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's definitely so exciting for us, as Paraguayan. Like always I say, it's great to have someone representing us all the way over there in Europe in the big stage. And I think what Enciso is doing right now, it's amazing, because as young as he is, he's already making headlines, and that's something that you can't say for everyone. And I think that he should continue in this path, stay focused in what he's doing, just put in all the work that he can, because he can be in this team right now, but sooner or later he can be in an even bigger stage, and I think that's probably his goal, and it's probably anyone's goal, continue to move on up. So I'm definitely excited for him to see what else he has in mind and what else he can do. We're definitely all rooting for him from here and from Paraguay.
Yeah, definitely. Let's start our conversation. Go to Ralph on this one, because certainly this all really started because of an injury. He comes in right in the game against Chelsea, where we talked about Enciso, getting some minutes. I think he had played, certainly it was like 14 games or something along those lines before, kind of breaking out to say, and he did score against Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago, but he gets this opportunity against Chelsea. He plays the majority of the game. I think it's like 75, 80 minutes or something like that. And, playing against the side that, obviously they haven't had a good season so far. They spent all this money, but, obviously playing at Stamford Bridge and playing against this type of opponent, definitely you're going to get more attention towards you. So he goes in and scores this wonderful goal. And we've kind of, this is something that I think you had posted on Twitter, Ralph, about how he's not afraid to go and shoot from long distance. And he does that to score the winner over there at Stamford Bridge. And of course, that gave him all the attention. Everyone was kind of raving about him, raving about how Brighton have found another, young gem that maybe people don't know about, and how that's kind of helped him, and helped this team perform very well. Currently they're 8th in the Premier League and, still in the position to qualify for some sort of European competition. We don't know what it could be, but he's still in that debate. Fast forward to the next week, or as we speak, literally 2 days ago, he goes and starts in the FA Cup semifinal against Manchester United, where he was, very unlucky to not score. He had a few, shines, and he was able to demonstrate some of his talent, but he was taken off in the 7th minute, and Brighton ended up losing on penalties. But yeah, it's been quite a transformation of a week for him, from going into the bench to scoring against Chelsea to playing against Manchester United at Wembley, and now looking to maybe take advantage of perhaps a continuing starting role, or at least like a crucial role under Roberto is very amazing to see.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think the Chelsea game is so important because he took his chance. He wasn't meant to come on, of course, in the first half, and even because of injury. I think the injury was to Veltman, right? So it wasn't an injury up front, but then because he decided to move Pascal Gross back, there was a space, and in came Julio Enciso. So he probably was surprised, even when the player went down, to know that he was getting that chance. But he took it really well, because apart from the goal, I thought he was just a constant threat. He was doing all the right things. What I was really impressed with Enciso as well, because remember, he was playing last year. He was playing in Paraguay. And he's only 19. Is that he was physically at the level he had to be, in terms of he was able to even hold up the ball against some of these Chelsea players and compete there physically, which I think was really interesting. It was the most minutes he'd played this season. I think it was about 60 minutes. He'd only done like 50 or something, was his record before then. So I think that was such an important moment, about taking the chance. The goal, of course, capped it all off, but also getting all that nice run of minutes. And then what happened in the game as well is, of course, Ferguson gets injured, and so Ferguson had kind of supplanted Enciso in the pecking order. And then when Trossard left, he was getting more and more minutes. And so Enciso was maybe not getting the games we were hoping, but now he has his chance, maybe for the run-in of the season. And I think the fact he started the semi-final was, again, that confidence from De Zerbi that he has, that he's seen something in Enciso to be able to do this. I still think there's I don't want to get too carried away, although I'm very excited about him. I mean, there's still one big thing for him, which at some point he needs to play 90 minutes. Remember, he still has not played 90 minutes of senior football in England. So that's a next test. In Paraguay, he was able to do that. There were some games he would play the full game despite his age. So I think maybe that's the next test, to see, can he continue this throughout a whole game, and not just in substitute appearances or in the FA Cup. I think he got about 65 minutes, right? So maybe that's another test for him to look at, but it's really good. And I think now, this last run-in of the season, we're going to see he gets us more games and more minutes, and it's just the right time, because at this point is a decision, right? Does he stay at Brighton? He's not going to be sold, but does he stay at Brighton, or do they loan him, say, to the Belgian club that's also owned by Tony Bloom, right? Union Saint-Gilloise, I think it's called, who just finished 2nd in the league. So they're going to play Champions League qualifiers, which could be exciting for him. Does he go there on loan, or do they keep him? And this is maybe for him to demonstrate that he's able to stay in the Premier League.
Yeah, actually what you were saying, Ralph, I think that he is still, has to play those 90 minutes like you were saying. But I think that it's, it takes time, especially as young as he is, and he has to prove himself that he's that he's capable of playing all those 90 minutes at that level. So it's great that he's already coming in and playing some minutes, scoring. I think he has like 2 goals or so in this season so far, and that's it's not record or it's not great. It's still good for someone like him, like a player like him. So young and new to the team, that he has to prove himself to the coach and to his teammates that he's capable of playing, with alongside with them. But definitely he's doing great. He's progressing, and I just hope that they give him more of a chance. Going forward. Now I'm sure that he's not gonna have all the goals in every match, but it's a progress, and it takes time. But I think that what he's doing right now, it's definitely something that you can, something that he has to continue to work on, and you can't expect too much out of him just yet. But I think he's going in the right direction.
Yeah, he's certainly doing like kind of the upward progress. And it's the model that, Brighton have been able to do over the last couple seasons. They've done it with players like Moises Caicedo, coming in from South America and really getting accustomed to what it's like over there. McAllister, obviously, coming from Argentina. Now he's into the Brighton side, becomes so important, goes to Argentina and wins the World Cup. So, that kind of level of importance shows that maybe they are doing something. Well, it's up to the players too. When they are talented, they are talented. But it shows that, for the likes of Enciso, that maybe some people were doubting about like, oh, why isn't he playing so many games or starting or even playing 90 minutes like Ralph had said. I think when you look at kind of, first of all, the competition that he has to deal with, not just on the team, but also who they're facing. And you have to remember, this is a kid that literally this time last year, Ralph, I think is right to say, like he was playing against, in the Paraguayan league and in a transformation of a whole year. Now he's essentially, if you wanted to, he could start for a Premier League side that is probably going to play in some sort of European competition next season. So that's a big change, for Paraguayan. That doesn't really happen a lot to get into that circumstance. And obviously Miguel Marón kind of is demonstrating that. But also I think, like you said, and I'll go to Ralph back on this one to close it out. I think it also proves that, maybe similar to what we saw with Almiron and kind of this transformation and also this kind of, renaissance of how he's performed well and now get the best of both worlds, really. Someone who's in their prime and took all the time to play there, and now a young player in Enciso who could be maybe the brightest gem that Paraguay have, or at least the most talented talent that they have. It also gives that kind of eye-opener to a lot of Paraguayans out there to say they want to raise their games, because now, as much as maybe Almiron and even Enciso probably don't know it, they are setting examples for all the Paraguayans out there, all the young kids also there that want to play in this league, because I think that's always been the dream for them. The dream is always to play in Europe and not maybe to play in the Premier League as maybe their preferred league, but it's kind of them setting the examples for young kids to achieve these dreams where, not long ago they were playing in this local league or playing in their Escuela de Fútbol or whatever, and now they are on Premier League teams playing week in, week out against some of the best players in the world.
Yeah, and Cesar is a great example of a couple of things that he did maybe different to other people. One is the physical preparation we're just talking about. I mean, he didn't do that with Libertad. He did with Libertad, but also personal trainer. And even when he first got signed by Brighton, that was the first thing he did was get his personal trainer in England to then continue to build muscle and work on the physical side of the game, because there's a real issue in Paraguay that we've seen a lot we talked under 20s, under 17s, they can't even play 90 minutes to the same intensity as the rest of the continent. So that's one point. And then the other thing is, although there was the funny thing when McAllister was translating English for him, he does speak English. He was learning over a year back in Paraguay. He does understand English fine. He's a bit like Bielsa there. He doesn't really want to speak it, but he understands it just fine. So those kind of off the field things that Enciso was doing to go along with the incredible talent he has, I think that's maybe the real example for a lot of players. And then maybe lastly, I mean, well done to his agent and to the fact that they didn't aim to go to a big club in the sense of, I don't know, like we talk about Gustavo Gomez went to AC Milan. Rodrigo Alborno, maybe people don't remember him. He went to Inter Milan from an under 17s. We have Cuencas in Milan as well at the moment, who's gone from Capiatà. And so maybe it's not always about going to the biggest club and finding yourself, well, Sergio Diaz to Real Madrid is another one. Maybe going to the biggest club and then finding yourself kind of almost impossible to get a start, because in the case of Sergio Diaz, he, even in his cantera, he was with Odegaard and Valverde, and he was having to try and displace Cristiano Ronaldo. It's like it wasn't going to happen. So maybe it's also looking at a more structured way of where you can go and which kind of club is really going to give you those minutes and help you develop. So all of that, I think, with Julio Enciso is a great kind of model for other players to follow.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Maria, I mean, I feel like as well, you know, it also, in a way, like what you said, like maybe it gives a reminder that I think for Paraguayan players, like Ralph had mentioned, like you look at someone like Enciso who is taking that advantage, like you said, he gets signed, he gets his personal trainer, he's speaking English, so he's already preparing himself for what's to come. Who's not to say that maybe for other players that maybe go to, as an example, like say to an Italy or a France or Germany, that hey, maybe they do want to learn English, but they want to maybe take advantage of like learning the language of, you know, French, Italian, whatever, but also trying to build themselves out. Because, you know, playing in Paraguay is a completely different level than it is playing in Europe. I mean, that's a given. So it kind of shows that maybe Enciso at such a young age, you know, like you said, he's 19. You know, maybe there are some players that are much older than him that didn't take that opportunity or probably won't take that opportunity. Here you have a kid really just going into that and saying, if he can do it, why can't I?
Yeah, definitely. You can tell that he's hungry for success, and he's doing it the right way, like you guys are saying. It's definitely, you know, like I always said before, you had the likes of Almiron, you know, and him opening the doors for people like Enciso. But you know, he is doing it his own way, and I think definitely learning the language is one of the, you know, one of the biggest things that he could have done, because as you may have remembered, Almiron wasn't speaking the language as good, you know, and he was kind of shy, and he wouldn't, you know, have that kind of like connection with the team as good. And I think that probably Enciso saw that and was like, I can't be like that, and I have to really immerse myself into the culture, into the team, into my teammates. So that's definitely a plus, you know, coming in and playing in a smaller club gives him an advantage, because he can improve in what he, you know, what he can do, and then continue to move on and eventually end in a bigger club, like we were saying earlier. You know, it would definitely give him more of a playing time, playing in a smaller club than, you know, versus a big club. You know, maybe he'll go from here to a middle-sized club and then to a bigger club. But it was a little different with Almiron, because he did go to the States to an initial club, like a small club, but then eventually became bigger pretty fast. And then came into a middle-sized club like Newcastle, and now, you know, they're advancing and they're doing a lot better, versus, you know, going to a club like, you know, Man United, Man City, etc. So yeah, I think he's going in the right direction. Definitely like the way that he's working, and that his team, you know, his agents are pushing him to do it this way, because it's working, definitely working for him. So I just hope that he can continue to take advantage of what he has, and looking forward to, hopefully seeing him more successful.
100%. I completely agree. So we'll definitely have to see. And maybe we get both of them playing in Champions League and Europa League next season. That would be very good for him, good for the club, and
Or
good for Paraguayan
teammates.
football as well. Could be. Never know. Could never know. Especially with the money that Newcastle has. Hey, it could happen. So switching gears now to what we see in, a competition where both these guys, like you said, we always talk about how these players came and really made their name, and what really stood them apart was playing in the Copa Libertadores and playing in these competitions. We'll talk about what the Paraguayan teams have been able to do, because certainly, we did see, a couple teams perform, and we're going to go in order basically of importance. I think the one game that we do have to mention, I think, was obviously the Palmeiras Cerro game. This was a really big game in terms of how important, Cerro could really be, demonstrative of how good they are on a continental standpoint. And here they are, Ralph, and I'll go to you on this one, starting off in the first 5 minutes, getting a goal from Damián Bobadilla over there in São Paulo. It was a good game from Facundo Savas, guys, but it all ended so quickly with 2 goals in 12 minutes in the second half from Gustavo Gomez, another Paraguayan that kind of likes to score against other Paraguayan teams, and of course Navarro scoring up. So this was a big blow for them. Honestly, it was a really big blow for Palmeiras and for Cerro Porteño, I should say, into not getting a result here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. If you remember on the preview show, I was kind of saying that I wasn't sure if Cerro would get much from this. So in a way, the result or the points gained is what we expected, that they got 0 points. But I mean, I thought they played much better than I expected, especially taking the lead, but also managing really to hold on. In the end, it was a difficult, I think, where Cerro kind of lost the game and lost the intensity, not just on the set pieces, of course, which is where the goals come from, but it's in the changes. So they had that really strong 11, and you have like Diego Churin up partnering Morales, and then you have Aquino and Pachi Carrizo, who we talked about last year, how they just couldn't work together. Well, Savas fixed that totally. But then the first change at halftime is Carrizo, who, for different reasons wasn't able to continue for the second half. And that immediately I felt weakened Cerro. Samudio didn't have a great game for me. He kind of gave the ball away a lot. He's not as mobile as Carrizo as well. So he starts to lose some of that. They lost some of that intensity. And then Churin comes off. Churin said he was carrying an injury. With hindsight, and because we're recording now, he played last night, so it wasn't that bad. But he didn't feel he could continue. And Cerro kind of lose a focal point up front in terms of when you're winning and you've got pressure and you want like the outlet to release pressure. Well, Churin's a great guy to be able to do that. And so they lost those 2 pieces. And so Carrizo goes off at halftime. Churin goes off, I think, around 55 minutes. And about 10 minutes later is when Gustavo Gomez gets that equalizer. But it was coming. At that point, it was coming. It came from the set piece, but you just felt that Palmeiras had a better foot in the game. And they were knocking on the door, and they're at home. They're the bigger team. That kind of pressure can wear you down, and sure enough, it does, because then 12 minutes later they get the winner. And I'm trying to think. Maybe there was a chance at the end. I can't quite remember, but Cerro didn't really look like they were going to get back into that game once they went down. So it was a strange match. It was kind of like Cerro got the lead, and then it was slowly like crumbling throughout the second half until boom, it went. But overall, it's a good performance, because if you think about it, if you're leading Palmeiras away for 60 minutes, then you can do something in this competition. So they should take heart from that. And we know that if they can keep that team together, injuries, of course, so important, but if they can keep that kind of starting 11 together, then they've got a really good chance, especially with Carrizo and Aquino, who were really good. Oh yeah, let me just mention Aquino. Actually, he had an amazing game off the ball. This is a player that we know he's creative, we know he's good on the ball, but he's not the hardest worker. He's not known for that. He had a great game off the ball. He was tracking back, he was winning things. I mean, he really played his heart out. And this is such a change, I think, from the Aquino that we started to see towards the end of Chiquiase, that maybe looked just a bit tired and and maybe he's got like a new lease of life, I think, under Sava, and I think he's seeing the potential that Cerro have. With Chiqui, they kind of reached their ceiling, and their ceiling ended up being second place twice in the league. And now I think with Sava, he's seeing there's another level they can reach. So it was a defeat, but despite all of that, I think it actually put Cerro in good stead going into the final games of the group.
Yeah, I want to go to Maria on this one because, obviously the loss is, very hurtful, especially from the way that they did it. But do you feel that maybe from performances like this, it shows that, hey, if we can do this against, for some, the best team in South America or among the best, why can't they do it to the teams in the rest of the continent? And especially it gives them a way of saying, we should perform like this at every level, not just in these type of games that are important. You shouldn't be taking against the likes of looking at the group like in Bolivar or Barcelona or even the local league as well. It shows that we can reach this kind of talent and potential and performances. It makes perfect sense.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, you can't lower your standards or play in a different kind of force, I guess. I don't know how to say it. Against a big team versus a small team. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna play a little differently tactically against Palmeiras versus Bolivar and whatnot. But you always want to go with the same energy, that you want to win, that you're gonna go for it and not expect average game. So yeah, I think that Cerro really understood that they're capable of winning against big teams, and also Palmeiras, they got a shock out of all this, and hey, we got real competition in this group, and I think that they realized that. But now they have a little bit of a break, I would say, playing against a smaller team. So, but yeah, I think that going against teams like Palmeira and winning, it gives them like something to look forward to and something to continue to fight for and being at the top of the group, even though still the first few weeks and first stages of the group, but staying there at the top, I think that's motivation for them to continue and hopefully continue into the next phase of the Libertadores.
Yeah, 100%. Jumping into the other teams that are performing in the Libertadores was Olimpia and Libertad. We'll go into Libertad first because I think that was the one that kind of surprised all of us, really, Ralph. I mean, Alianza Lima, a side with a pitiful away record. I think the first time that they've won since 2011. Here they are controlling the entire game and getting the win there. I mean, this is embarrassing more than anything. It's not just, the fact that this is also coming off of them getting a win against Atletico Mineiro, who in part also lost their game against Atletico Paranaense, but to lose against this side, it's unforgivable, really. I mean, it's certainly not, especially when you're playing at home at the Defensores. It's something that should never have happened, and unfortunately, it did for Libertad.
Yes, I mean, it really is quite inexplicable to think that Libertad can blast Cerro away 5-0. They can beat Atletico Mineiro away, and then they can capitulate at home. I mean, 1 point from Alianza Lima, they're playing very well. Of course, the Copa Libertadores like curse that they finally broken of 30 games. Obviously, that includes so many different teams over the years, and this particular team is playing very well. But still, you just expect Libertad to be able to do their job at home with the quality they have, with the players they have. Even if you fall behind 1-0 like they did, you kind of thought, well, they're going to surely like claw this back. And then there's another great goal. and suddenly they're 2-0 down and they don't seem to have a way into it. But it's really hard like to analyze this game. I don't really know what to say. Like, how do you manage to lose this? And it's another question mark over Garnero. And again, it seems strange question. How do you question Daniel Garnero, who's won so many league titles in Paraguay with 3 different clubs, which nobody else has managed to do. So he's not a bad manager. This is not true. But he always seems to slip up in these games. I mean, the famous one at home with Olimpia, when he had a really good Olimpia team and they lost 1-0 to Delfin from Ecuador at home, and they didn't get out of their group. And so this is like a similar slip up with Libertad. You can't really see, like, with the quality they have, and also the tactical ability he does have to constantly win titles, like how this can happen. And then Libertad went last night and they won very easily in the league. So it was a really hard one to understand, especially with so many experienced players. They have Martin Silva, Oscar Cardoso, Christian Riveros, and Roque Santa Cruz, who are all between 39 and 41 years old. They played World Cups, they played, everything. You have a Europa League final in there with Oscar Cardoso, you have Champions League with Roque. So, I mean, these are really experienced players. And then you have the really informed players. You have Tito Villalba's playing so well at the moment, got another goal last night. You have Lorenzo Milgarejos doing so well. You have these youngsters coming in, like Enzo, who's doing so well. It's just, I can't analyze this because it doesn't make sense. But that's the beauty of football sometimes, right? That you can get this. And now I would just say that Libertad are not in any kind of position to qualify. They're just the same, because you would have expected them maybe to lose away to Mineiro and win at home to Lima. Okay, they did the reverse, but now they're just in that position of 3 points up to 2 games. They got plenty of work to do.
Yeah, they do.
So no, I was gonna say the only thing I can think about is, they're focused in Apertura, the first place. So maybe they're just like, let's slow down in Copa Libertadores and try to win this Apertura. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, this is a group where, you don't take, off days or anything. Like, other teams are going to come out. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but like they will come indeed and like take advantage and take you by surprise. And that's what Alianza Lima did. So it feels like now it just becomes much more difficult, because it shows like, okay, if they can indeed compete, then that makes it hard. That makes it hard where, they could have been in a position where they would have been 6 points in a good position, probably good enough to advance. And now everything gets more difficult. And it was already going to be a more difficult group already. Now it just makes it even more difficult. Switching gears to a side that at least gave some sort of positive vibe was Olimpia, certainly getting the 1-0 win against Patronato, a team that I think certainly was a good result. Obviously, playing the Defensores, Fernando Cardoso again, showing why he's so talented on this Olimpia side, getting the win, and Maria putting them in a good position right now against Atlético Nacional. That's their next game over there in Medellin, where that could indeed, in a way, from the way that the group is being paired out, could indeed decide who could win the group, assuming that Melgar and Patronato also don't get any points as well.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be statistically it looks like Olimpia can win and can beat Atlético Nacional. Nacional hasn't been doing as good in their own league. So compared to Olimpia, Olimpia is right now 4th place in the Apertura, and you can say that that's a good spot, but it's really not. They're not doing as well as they should be. But I think going against Atlético Nacional, it's gonna be a hard one, because they've always had a hard time playing against them, and it's gonna be away as well. So hopefully they put everything that they can in this game. It's definitely going to be one of those that kind of that decides the group, like you said, Roberto. So they probably know this as well. They're going to have to put everything that they have and try to make goals, because they haven't been able to score a lot of goals. It's just always been a 1-0, 1-1 draws, and not scoring that much. So they hopefully they play more offensively than defensively, in my opinion. But we'll see. We'll see what they can do. I think that it might be a hard game, but it's going to be a good game that they'll probably be able to win.
Yeah, I mean, Olympia it's been strange, right? Because I think now the last 4 games have been 1-0. They lost 2 in a row 1-0. Now they've won 2 in a row 1-0. But the real issue has been this lack of goals. So they've had the injury to Derlis Gonzalez. Even before that, Derlis Gonzalez was scoring lots of penalties, so they weren't creating that much from open play. And then so they've had Montenegro in there, he's got injured. They had Paiva in there for the game against Patronato. Then, you know, they're bringing Bruera in at some point, but it seems like Diego Aguirre doesn't really trust him fully. And so there's a lot of like moving parts in Olympia at the moment. The kind of one, I guess the one or the positive is that they have Richard Ortiz and they have Marco Gomez in midfield. And when they have those two, they have that stability, which is why they're not conceding a huge amount. And in fact, they've managed these. I think they haven't conceded from the other team in 3 games in a row because the Ivan Torres own goal against Luqueño, right? So, you know, that was an own goal, but teams haven't scored on them now for a while. But it's just trying to find and getting that kind of team to click. And it is very hard with a new manager and then with injuries. And so you just feel like they're not quite there. The Copa, I think the opposite to what Maria was saying about Libertad, in Olympia's case is the Apertura is gone. They can't win it. So they can focus more on the Libertadores and build up that team to get through this group, which, if we're honest, is an easy group, is the easiest group of the 3 Paraguayans. So they got the win against Patronato at home, which they should have done. And so they're on course, and maybe the focus is for that. And obviously what Olympia need more than anybody else is time. They need time for the players to recover from injury and get back. So the longer Libertadores that we have these days, because of course in the old days it was all over by June or July, pretty much the whole tournament. Now it's extended, so that's actually a real positive for them. I think that they're not having to play like every week 2 games, because that would have been really difficult with the thin squad at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. It shows that they're still fighting for something more, but it makes it more difficult for them as well. I just wanted to close out here. Obviously, looking at Sudamericana real quick, we saw Guarani defeat Danubio 2-1, a big win for Guarani to get back in a really, really tight group now. All teams with 3 points in their group, and Tacuarí, unfortunately, not getting anything in La Plata in Argentina, losing 4-0 on the day against Estudiantes. So we'll definitely keep an eye on what's been going on there as we close out another great episode of Guarani Vision. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Maria Britos, and Ralph Hannah, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.